The night hip-hop almost lost more than music. Some stories in hip-hop feel like success stories until you look closer and realize they are survival stories wearing diamonds. We talk about the rappers who made it out, the artists who turned pain into platinum, the voices who escaped poverty, violence, broken homes, and impossible pressure. But what nobody talks about enough is what happens after they make it, because sometimes the money arrives before the healing. Sometimes the fame gets louder while the pain stays buried. And sometimes the same world that celebrates a rapper's rise is the same world watching quietly while that rapper falls apart in real time. In just a few years, hip-hop lost names that still hurt to say out loud. Juice WRLD, Mac Miller, Lil Peep, artists who are not just famous, but deeply connected to millions of young fans who heard their pain and felt less alone. But for every rapper whose story ended too soon, there are others who came dangerously close. Artists who stood right on the edge, disappeared into bad habits, crashed into legal trouble, ruined relationships, scared their fans, and somehow still made it back long enough for the world to wonder if they can truly change. This is not just a video about addiction, money, lawsuits, or viral clips. This is about the hidden cost of the lifestyle people keep calling a dream. Kodak Black, NBA YoungBoy, Finesse, 2 Times, and Lil Skies all walk different roads, but every road leads to the same uncomfortable question. What happens when fame saves you from poverty, but cannot save you from yourself? Kodak had the talent. YoungBoy had the loyalty. Finesse had the hunger. Lil Skies had the moment. Each one had everything people chase, and each one still ended up fighting battles no chain, no tour, no hit record could fix. So before we judge, we need to understand the full story. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments. If you think fame can destroy a person faster than poverty, comment 1. If you think the right people around them can still change everything, comment 2. And if you want more deep hip-hop stories like this, subscribe before we go any deeper. Kodak Black and the warning signs fans could not ignore. Kodak Black's story hits different because he was never supposed to be polished. That was the whole point. He came from Pompano Beach with a voice that sounded like struggle, hunger, confusion, pain, humor, and survival all mixed together. Fans did not connect with Kodak because he looked perfect. They connected with him because he looked real. He was rough around the edges, but that roughness made his music feel honest. When he won, people felt like somebody from the bottom had forced the industry to open the door. At 19, Kodak was already doing what most rappers only dream about. Billboard numbers, platinum songs, major features, massive fan loyalty, and a sound that could not be copied. He could make a street record feel emotional and make a vulnerable song feel dangerous. He built Sniper Gang, carried Florida on his back, and became one of those artists whose name always stayed in the conversation no matter how messy things got around him. But that is where the story gets painful, because the same pain that made Kodak's music powerful also followed him after the fame. The legal problems, the public concern, the interviews where fans said he looked different, the live streams where people watched him closely and asked if something was wrong. Every time Kodak appeared online looking tired, unfocused, or overwhelmed, the internet split into 2 groups. One side mocked him. The other side begged people to stop laughing and start paying attention. That is the dark side of being a famous rapper in the social media era. A private struggle becomes public content. A concerning moment becomes a meme. A cry for help can be turned into a clip with captions and laughing emojis before anyone asks if the person is okay. Kodak's fans have watched him celebrate progress, speak about wanting to be better, and still appear to slide back into the same storm. That is what makes the situation feel so heavy. It is not that Kodak does not understand the danger. It is that understanding danger does not automatically make the battle easy. When the comeback looks real but the pain still follows. The most heartbreaking part of Kodak's story is that there have been moments where it really looked like he was turning a corner. He spoke openly about wanting to clean up his life. He told fans he was proud of himself. He talked about reducing bad habits and trying to move differently. For a minute, people wanted to believe the worst was behind him. They wanted the comeback to be simple. They wanted the story to be, Kodak struggled, Kodak survived, Kodak changed, and now Kodak is finally free. But life rarely moves like a clean documentary, and healing is not a straight line, especially when the person trying to heal is surrounded by pressure, money, cameras, expectations, and an industry that often rewards chaos more than stability. Kodak can say he wants better, and fans can believe him, but the environment around him still matters. The friends, the yes men, the late nights, the triggers, the old pain. The the pressure to perform the same image that made him famous. All of that can pull a person backward. Then came the moments fans could not ignore. Viral appearances where people said his energy seemed off. Clips where his words seemed scattered. Public reactions where even longtime supporters sounded worried instead of entertained. And what made it worse was how familiar it felt. Hip-hop fans have seen this movie before. They have watched artists show signs in public, watched people laugh, watched the concern get dismissed, and then watched tragedy force everyone to pretend they cared all along. Kodak's situation is not about calling him finished. It is about recognizing that talent does not make someone invincible. A hit record cannot replace real support. A presidential pardon cannot erase inner battles. A loyal fan base cannot physically pull someone away from the wrong habits when the cameras stop rolling. Kodak Black is still here, still capable, still gifted, and still loved by millions. But love without accountability becomes silent. And silence, in stories like this, can be dangerous. NBA YoungBoy and the freedom that scared everybody. NBA YoungBoy's story is even more complicated because his pain has always been part of his power. From Baton Rouge to the top of the charts, YoungBoy built one of the most loyal fan bases in modern rap by sounding like he was bleeding through every song. His music did not feel manufactured. It felt like a diary written during a storm. Fans heard the anger, the paranoia, the love, the regret, the loneliness, and the survival instinct. That is why they followed him so intensely. They did not just like the music, they felt connected to the person behind it. But YoungBoy's life outside the booth has always been surrounded by pressure. Legal problems, house arrest, strict monitoring, public relationships, online drama, and the weight of becoming famous before fully becoming an adult. He became a father young, became a superstar young, and became a symbol of pain for millions of people before he had the time or space to process his own. When fans saw recent clips of him speaking with fast shifts in energy, moving from calm to intense in seconds, the internet reacted instantly. Some people mocked it, some defended him. But many fans who have followed him for years heard something deeper. They were not just asking whether he was okay in that one clip. They were remembering the entire history behind the clip. YoungBoy has been open through his music about substances, emotional numbness, and the search for peace. That is why the conversation around him feels bigger than gossip. When a person spends years under legal supervision, there is structure around them, even if they hate it. There are rules, check-ins, consequences, and people watching closely. But when that structure disappears, freedom can become both a blessing and a risk. For someone truly stable, freedom is relief. For someone still fighting internal battles, freedom can mean nobody is close enough to stop the slide before it gets serious. That is what scared people. Not just the clip itself, but the possibility that YoungBoy might be legally free while emotionally trapped. The difference between surviving and healing. YoungBoy's fans have always celebrated his survival, and honestly, they had a reason to. This is an artist who built a massive career while facing situations that would have crushed most people. Even under restrictions, he kept releasing music, stayed relevant, broke streaming records, fed his fan base, and proved that his connection with listeners was stronger than industry politics. He did things from limited circumstances that other artists cannot do with full freedom, full budgets, and full media support. But survival is not the same thing as healing. Surviving means you made it through the day. Healing means the day no longer controls you. And when you listen closely to YoungBoy's music, that difference is everywhere. He can sound victorious and empty in the same verse. He can talk about money, family, enemies, love, and pain, like they are all happening at the same time. That emotional chaos is what makes his music powerful. But it also makes fans worry about the man behind the microphone. The hardest truth is that fame can reward someone for never healing. If the pain makes the music successful, the industry has no real financial reason to slow the artist down and ask what that pain is doing to him. Labels want songs. Fans want albums. Promoters want shows. Blogs want clips. Everybody wants output, but a person is not a machine. And a rapper who turns trauma into content still has to live inside that trauma when the studio lights turn off. YoungBoy's story is not finished. That is important. He is still young, still talented, still capable of building a future that does not revolve around chaos. But the next chapter depends on whether freedom becomes a foundation or a trap. If he uses it to build structure, protect his health, choose peace, and surround himself with people who care more about his life than his numbers, then the comeback can be real. But if freedom only means nobody can tell him no, then the danger becomes harder to see until it is too late. Finesse 2 times. and the career that kept restarting. Finesse 2 Times has one of those stories where the talent was never the problem. The man had presence. He had the Memphis voice, the confidence, the raw delivery, and the kind of street credibility that cannot be faked. When he touched a record, people listened. When he came home, the internet paid attention. There was always something magnetic about him, like he could turn one moment into momentum if life would just give him enough time to stay free and focused. But that is exactly where the tragedy begins. Finesse's career kept getting interrupted. Every time he seemed ready to rise, another legal issue, another setback, another delay pulled him away from the very momentum he needed. In rap, timing is everything. You can have the voice, the image, the story, and the city behind you. But if you disappear every time the industry starts calling, the machine moves on. The playlists change. The promoters call somebody else. The fans find new artists. The labels stop seeing potential and start seeing risk. That is what makes his story so frustrating. It was never that people did not care. It was never that he lacked charisma. It was that every restart came with a heavier cost. When an artist goes away, the world does not pause. By the time he returns, the sound may have shifted, the business may have changed, and the audience may need to be won over again from scratch. Then came the lawsuits and contract problems, and suddenly the image of the hustler started turning into something sadder. The man who branded himself around finesse was now caught in situations where the system, the courts, and the business side of music seemed to be finessing him right back. The public saw headlines, mugshots, and dollar amounts. But underneath all that was a deeper story about what happens when raw talent enters an industry full of paperwork, leverage, and people who know how to profit from desperation. The Memphis dream and the price of bad timing. Finesse 2 Times came from a city that has shaped hip-hop in a major way. Memphis is not just a place on the map. It is a sound, a pressure, a history, a rhythm, and a survival code. When Memphis artists break through, they bring something different because the city itself carries weight. Finesse had that weight in his voice. He sounded like someone who had lived every bar before recording it. But talent from a hard city often comes with hard circumstances. Many artists from that environment are not walking into the music business with lawyers, financial advisors, clean contracts, and patient mentors. They are walking in with hunger, and hunger can make a bad deal look like an opportunity. Hunger can make fast money feel smarter than long-term ownership. Hunger can make a person trust anyone who promises movement, especially when the artist feels like the clock is already against him. That is the part people miss when they laugh at legal trouble or money problems. They act like every decision happens in a calm room with perfect information. It does not. Sometimes a rapper signs because rent is due. Sometimes he agrees because he has family depending on him. Sometimes he takes the show because he needs the cash, even if the business is messy. And sometimes one wrong move becomes a lawsuit that follows him longer than the song that made him hot. Finesse's situation with promoters and business disputes shows how quickly the dream can turn into a trap. One missed obligation can become a judgment. One judgment can become another financial weight. One financial weight can make the next decision more desperate. And desperation creates the perfect conditions for another bad move. Still, the story is not over. At 33, Finesse is not old. He still has the voice, the recognition, and the city behind him. But the comeback cannot be built on the same chaos that kept breaking the first runs. It has to be built on discipline, clean business, better advice, and people around him who understand that protecting the artist is more important than squeezing one more check out of the moment. Lil Skies and the $1 Million Illusion. Lil Skies represents a different kind of cautionary tale. His story is not about the same street pressure or legal chaos. His story is about what happens when a young artist becomes rich and famous so fast that the money feels endless, the attention feels permanent, and nobody around him fully explains how quickly both can disappear. During the SoundCloud era, Lil Skies was everywhere. He had the look, the melodies, the videos, the tattoos, the youthful energy, and the internet momentum. From 2017 to 2019, he felt like one of the faces of a new generation. Songs were moving, views were climbing, fans were locked in. He was young, marketable, and different enough to stand out in a crowded wave. For a kid from Pennsylvania, it was the kind of rise most artists dream about. But fast fame creates a dangerous illusion. When the checks start coming, it can feel like the lifestyle is proof of success. Cars, jewelry, houses, clothes, travel, teams, studio time, videos, security, gifts, parties, and the constant need to look like the superstar everyone expects. The problem is that the public sees the gross number, not the deductions. They hear millions and assume every dollar stays in the artist's pocket. They do not think about taxes, managers, lawyers, labels, advances, recoupment, staff, family pressure, and the cost of maintaining an image that feeds the brand. Lil Skies later spoke about money in a way that made people look back at his run differently. Whether every estimate was exact or exaggerated, the emotional truth was clear. A young artist can touch life-changing money and still end up feeling like it slipped through his fingers. And once the music slows down, the danger becomes obvious. The lifestyle that felt normal during the peak can become impossible when the momentum fades. That is not just a Lil Skies problem. That is a music industry problem. Young artists are often taught how to look successful before they are taught how to stay successful. The industry keeps selling the dream but hiding the damage. When you put these stories together, the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Kodak Black shows what happens when trauma follows an artist into fame and the public turns concern into entertainment. NBA YoungBoy shows how survival can be mistaken for healing, especially when an artist keeps producing through pain. Finesse 2 Times shows how talent can be trapped by legal problems, bad timing, and business pressure. Lil Skies shows how fast money and fast fame can create a lifestyle that collapses when the spotlight moves. Different artists, different cities, different problems. Same warning. The music industry loves the comeback story, but it rarely helps prevent the fall. It loves pain when pain becomes streams. It loves struggle when struggle becomes branding. It loves dangerous lifestyles when they sell records, but when the consequences arrive, the artist is usually left standing alone in front of the cameras. That is why these stories matter. Not because fans need more gossip, but because fans need to understand the difference between entertainment and a real person unraveling. Rappers are often expected to be superheroes. They are expected to be rich but relatable, dangerous but peaceful, vulnerable but untouchable, constantly available but mentally stable, successful but still hungry, healed but still hurt enough to make the music feel real. That is an impossible role for any human being to play forever. The truth is, some of these artists can still turn things around. Kodak can still protect his health and legacy. YoungBoy can still turn freedom into peace. Finesse can still rebuild with smarter business and discipline. Lil Skies can still create a second act with wisdom instead of pressure. But none of it happens by accident. It takes real support, real accountability, and real decisions made away from the cameras. Because in hip-hop, the scariest downfall is not always the one that happens overnight. Sometimes it happens slowly, in public, while everybody watches, comments, laughs, and waits for the next clip. The lesson hip-hop cannot keep ignoring. The real tragedy is not that rappers struggle. The real tragedy is that so many people only start caring after the warning signs become impossible to ignore. By then, the artist has already been clipped, judged, mocked, reposted, debated, and turned into entertainment for strangers who do not have to live with the consequences. That is why the stories of Kodak Black, NBA YoungBoy, Finesse 2 Times, and Lil Skies should not be treated like random gossip. They are warnings about the same machine, the same pressure, and the same dangerous illusion that fame automatically means freedom. Strategically, every artist in this position needs more than talent. Talent opens the door, but structure keeps the door from closing. Kodak needs people around him who are not afraid to tell him the truth when the cameras are off. YoungBoy needs freedom to become disciplined, not just access. Finesse 2 Times needs cleaner business, smarter contracts, and a team that protects his future instead of chasing short-term money. Lil Skies needs the kind of financial control and creative patience that turns a viral run into a long career. These are not small details. These are the difference between a legacy and a cautionary tale. The lesson is simple but heavy. The lifestyle cannot be stronger than the person living it. Money is not peace. Fame is not healing. Loyalty is not always protection. And attention is not the same thing as love. A rapper can have millions of fans and still feel alone. He can have luxury cars and still feel trapped. He can have hits on the charts and still be losing the most important battle behind closed doors. For fans, the lesson is also important. We can enjoy the music without celebrating destruction. We can hold artists accountable without wishing failure on them. We can stop turning every concerning moment into a joke. And we can remember that the same people who give us songs, stories, and emotions are still human beings trying to survive their own lives. Hip-hop was built from pain, but it does not have to keep losing people to pain. The future has to be different. More peace, more guidance, more wisdom, more real support. More people saying, slow down, before the world is forced to say, rest in peace. If you believe these artists still have a chance to turn things around, comment 1. If you think the industry needs to protect young rappers better, comment 2. And if this story made you look at hip-hop fame differently, make sure you like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more deep stories from the world of rap.